Hello, and this is the second video in my mini-series on running a e-commerce replatform discovery process. In the first video we looked at what discovery is and why it's important, and now we're going to talk about effective planning for your discovery workshops. The next video then goes on to look at ways to effectively manage and run a workshop to make it an enjoyable experience for attendees. But how do you do effective planning? The most important thing is to ensure that you have a clearly defined set of workshops that are mapped against the project scope that has been signed off. You'll find on the landing page for this video on my website a downloadable weighted scorecard, which I also reference in my early video series on running vendor and SI selection. This is a really good starting point because if you use weighted scorecards, you already set up and define capabilities for e-commerce that the platform must deliver. It's sensible to base workshops around capabilities, and the reason for doing this is if you just go out to different areas of the business and now ask them to get into low-level requirements from the high-level ones captured, you run the risk of creating a lot of duplication because there are functional capabilities for e-commerce that different parts of the business have dependencies upon. So they will give you a very similar requirement. You'll capture it multiple times. Now somebody has to go through that deduplication process to weed that out and isolate the primary requirement and ensure that duplicates are not sent down into use case models or user stories for developers, because otherwise the developers are going to have to spend time and effort to realise that they've got duplicates and not waste time and effort. So a capability, for example, is order management or payment management or product catalogue management. So you take an area like order management and you look at all of the requirements across the business that relate to managing, processing orders or different types of orders placed through the e-commerce platform. Then you go and identify the business stakeholders that are required to. If you know your capabilities that you need to deliver requirements for, you can map stakeholder sets to them. So you can find technical stakeholders, people who are going to be responsible for making architectural decisions or integration decisions or data flow decisions. Then you can get your business stakeholders, so those people who are responsible for ensuring that the e-commerce platform delivers the functional capabilities that they must have in order to satisfactorily hit their e-commerce goals and deliver the right user experience to the customer. Then you've also got people in the logistics side of the business who can be impacted by issues caused by an order management flow from the e-commerce site into back-end systems like ERPs, warehouse management. So now you can build your stakeholder set around that capability and ensure that you have the right people in the room so that you get a holistic view of the requirements for that particular area, which makes it much simpler for the business analyst to understand what are individual requirements versus what are the same requirements just expressed in different ways by different parts of the business. The next bit around effective planning, after you've established your capabilities and the stakeholder set for each of those capability workshops, is to ensure that you go to the people who own the resource for each of those stakeholders. So this is senior managers or directors. You must ensure that the people who can authorise the use of time for their team have bought into the process that you're following and have said that they are going to ensure that their team dedicates the time to those workshops. Otherwise, you can end up in a situation, and I've seen this on a large omni-channel project, where key stakeholders did not turn up to workshops simply because the director had said that he had not been properly engaged and had not authorised that time because they had other priorities within their team. That compromised the output because we couldn't validate some of the assumptions, we couldn't get requirements properly defined, and the business analyst had to go to and fro the other team to then check what their requirements were, match that back to the business, and it became really confused. And it took much longer to deliver that stream than it did on other capabilities where you had everyone in the room. So ensuring that resources ring fence is absolutely critical. If you want discovery to go well, you've got to get buy-in from the people who own the authorization process for people's time. The next bit after effective planning is you have to ensure that you brief people adequately. It's all well and good having the resource ring fence, but if the people don't know why they turn up to a workshop, then that's a failure as well. So be very succinct in defining goals for each workshop, the discussion points that will be covered during the session, and what the target outputs are, and also any follow-up activity that will be expected. Equally, brief people on any pre-work that's required. For example, if you require people to come with evidence of existing business processes, or people to come with any documentation, A good example is when talking about voice of customer, or user-generated content, and we're talking about using a third-party review engine. If there's a review engine all being used, the ability to bring in information about how that currently works, what the capability set is, any documentation from that third party that needs to be evaluated, etc. So be very clear what people can do to be prepared to get a more productive workshop, and then ensure that they understand why they're coming, what they're going to discuss, and what they're going to get from it as well. If you give people that care and attention up front, they come in a much better mindset to be able to contribute effectively to that process. And it also then makes the business analyst's life much easier, because if people are in the room knowing what they're doing, they're generally much more productive in what they contribute. If they're sat there and having no idea, A, it can create a bit of a defensive barrier, but B, it can also lead to an ineffective session where the BA comes out with so many gaps in the requirements that you then have to run follow-up one-to-ones, or you then have to duplicate workshops in order to get to the level of detail that is required. So that is how to effectively plan. So all you need to do is remember the simple stages, which is define the capabilities aligned with your project scope, define the stakeholder set that will enable you to capture requirements for each capability, ensure the resources ring-fenced, get a clear brief for the each workshop and distribute it to the stakeholders, and ensure that there is somebody there on hand to answer any questions if people have questions in advance of those workshops. I know that was a long session, but planning for workshops is critical if you want to get the right results out of them, and if you want to save time and effort. So it's worth going into this effort up front. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to email me, james@digitaljuggler.com, or drop a line via LinkedIn or Twitter, and you can find my contact details on the website.